All right, hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most fundamental human quests out there, the search for meaning. In the next few minutes, we're going to build a kind of toolkit for understanding the belief systems that shape our world, from the biggest cosmic questions all the way down to our own personal sense of who we are. So let's kick things off with the biggest question of all.
This is the ultimate question, right? For thousands and thousands of years, people have wrestled with how we got here, why we're here, and what our place is in the grand scheme of things. And it's this very question, this seed, that has sprouted into, well, pretty much every worldview you can think of.
And for a lot of people, the answer isn't something you can just see or touch. They look to what we call a supernatural dimension, a whole other level of existence beyond our own, that they see as the ultimate source of life and all the rules we live by. And this idea? It's pretty much the bedrock for most of the world's religions.
Okay, so to really get a handle on these different traditions, we need a couple of basic tools in our toolkit. We're going to start with two key ideas that'll help us sort of categorize and compare them.
So the first big difference really just boils down to one simple question. How many gods are we talking about? On one side, you've got monotheism. Think Christianity, Judaism, Islam. It's all centered on one single god. But then, on the other side, you have polytheism, like in Hinduism or, ancient Greek myths, where there are lots of different gods and goddesses.
All right, the other big question is, where is the divine? A transcendent worldview says that divine power is, well, beyond our world. It's separate, it's somewhere else. An immanent worldview, though, that sees the divine right here, within the world. It's in nature, it's in us. You see this a lot in traditions like Buddhism and pantheism.
Okay, but let's be real. Religion is way more than just a bunch of definitions, right? So what's the secret ingredient? What turns it from just an old book into something that's a powerful living force in people's lives?
We call it a living, dynamic religion for a reason. It's got to be active. It's got to mean something to its followers right now. Yeah, it's not some dusty old museum piece. It's a living, breathing framework that gives people a sense of purpose, a little guidance, and that all-important feeling of belonging.
So what's holding it all up? Well, you can think of it like it's resting on four big interconnected pillars. First, you have the core beliefs and the community of believers who share them. Now those beliefs, they usually come from sacred texts, the big stories. From those stories, you get the ethics, the rule book for how to live a good life. And finally, you've got rituals and ceremonies. These are the things people do that make it all real and bring the whole thing to life.
All right, so now that we've got our toolkit, let's put it to work. Let's see how all these ideas fit together in one of the oldest living cultures on the entire planet. We're going to dive into the foundational spiritual tradition of Aboriginal peoples, the dreaming.
Okay, so the dreaming, it's not just part of Aboriginal spirituality, it is the absolute heart of it. And it's a really deep concept, but it basically underpins, well, everything. It's the creation story. It's where the laws come from. It's the blueprint for society. It's the spiritual energy that flows through the entire natural world.
Now here's where it gets really fascinating, and it has to do with time. The dreaming is something called metatemporal. And what that means is, it exists outside of our normal, straight-line idea of time. So all those incredible creation events from the past, they aren't just ancient history, they are happening right now. They're eternally present, constantly shaping today and tomorrow. The past is literally alive in the present.
And this idea that the dreaming is always present, that leads us to one of its most critical, most essential parts, this deep, unbreakable bond with the land.
So how did this connection get so strong? Well, it goes right back to the creation story. The belief is that these incredible ancestral beings traveled across a world that didn't have any shape yet. And as they went, they formed the mountains, the rivers, they brought life into being, and they laid down the law. But here's the key part. They didn't just pack up and leave. Their spiritual essence stayed behind, becoming part of the land itself. So you see, the land isn't just dirt and rocks. It's a living, breathing thing. It's the source of who you are, your spirituality, everything.
And that right there explains perfectly why certain places are so incredibly important. These sacred sites, they're the exact spots where major dreaming events happened. Think of them like living monuments, just buzzing with spiritual power. They're a direct line, a physical link, back to those ancestral beings and to the dreaming itself.
Okay, so we've got this ever-present spiritual reality, completely tied to the land. But how does that actually play out in real life, in the day-to-day stuff, in the culture, and how a person even sees themselves?
Well, for starters, the dreaming gives the ultimate answer to that huge question we asked at the very beginning. Remember, how do we make sense of the universe? Because it's always present. It's not just some old story about creation. It's the ongoing reason for why the world is here, why the landscape looks the way it does, and why every single living thing exists.
And this is so important. The dreaming also tells you who you are. It defines your identity. It lays out all your kinship ties. Who's your family? What are your duties to them, to your community? That entire sense of belonging is woven right into the stories and laws of the ancestors.
So how do you pass down something this massive and profound? You do it through incredible, vibrant art and symbolism. And this art is so much more than just something nice to look at. It's like a living library. It's how you communicate the sacred stories. It's a spiritual map showing you the land, the sacred places. And by telling those stories and showing those maps, it passes on the law, the knowledge, and it keeps that connection to the ancestral beings alive and strong.
So we've gone from these huge universal ideas all the way down to one specific, powerful, living tradition. And we've seen how these worldviews really are a blueprint for reality. It kind of leaves you with a final question to think about for yourself. What are your foundational stories? Whether they're spiritual or cultural or just deeply personal, what are the stories that make up the map of your world?